Hey, my friend, how are you doing with the whole COVID-19 thing? What's stuff like there?
Alabama's interesting because, for a long time, our state wasn't colored in on the map of states that had cases of COVID-19,
Right.
of, coronavirus. And so everybody was kind of lackadaisical just a little bit. And I started doing stuff a little earlier than most people, and people kind of looked at me weird. And I think it was because I wasn't here and I got to see other places, right? And when I came into town, dude, there was I met this guy that was like, "Oh yeah, we're thinking about going out on our cruise next week." I was like, "What?" Oh. I said, "You're not serious, are you? You're joking, right?" He goes, "Oh no, I think they might do it. I mean, I think they're gonna take your temperature before you get on the boat." I was like, "Dude, you saw the whole boat quarantined over there off the coast, right?" He's like, "Oh yeah, that was over there though. This is." I was like, "Dude," it's like, "Are you serious?"
That is a floating nightmare. Just taking some time off with my family and hanging around at home, that's fine. Being stuck on one of those boats, I feel tremendous sympathy toward those people. And why you would voluntarily put yourself in that possible position, come on, buddy.
Yeah, dude. I can think of several other ways to chill out and feel like I have taken a vacation.
Like fly fishing. Because guess who isn't there when you go fly fishing? Anyone.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to fish a ton during this time.
It's not a bad idea. So tell me about the whole social distancing thing. Are you doing it?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to watch that concept catch on because I think for me and a lot of people I talk to, your first thought when you encountered all of this was, what if I get it? And then, quickly it kind of shifts toward, well, what about like the whole global thing? And then the social distancing idea comes up. And again, I think I ran that through the filter first of, well, will that really keep me from getting it? And then I thought, I just need to understand the principle here. And I started seeing the stuff about flattening out the curve. You've seen that, I'm sure.
Yep. We should explain that.
Yeah, sure.
Every hospital has a certain number of beds. And so every locality has a certain capacity to do things like help people, with ventilators, for example. Mm-hmm. So if the number of patients that run to the hospital exceed the number of ventilators in the area, then the hospital starts having to make decisions. Not to mention, you've got doctors that are working around the clock, and you start to overwhelm the medical system pretty quickly. And so that's what Italy's telling us right now. So China was first, and then second to China is Italy. And it certainly has run away in Italy faster than anywhere. It has the largest number of casualties, second to China. What we've learned from Italy is that you can quickly overrun the capacity of the healthcare system in that area. And so they are sending warnings to the rest of the world saying, look, you're not prepared. This is what you got to do. And so that's kind of the deal right now. The idea of flattening out the curve is instead of everybody running to the hospital at once, we slowly go over time, and hopefully we stay below the threshold of the medical capacity in the locality that you're in. And so social distancing does that by, let's say you have a room full of organisms and they're just bumping around. If you were to plot, and Grant Sanderson from 3 Blue 1 Brown has a fantastic video on this, if you were just to plot the number of people. Hey, hang on just one second. I'm getting a call. Hold on.
Huh. Yep, everything good?
No, everything's not good. That was my friend, and his friend just went to the hospital to get tested. He's it sounds like he may have it. So there's that.
Like our mutual friend's friend?
Yeah, exactly. He went up to the hospital, and they're like, look, this is the deal. We're going to test you. And the test came from the State Department. And so they tested him, sent him home, and so he's in isolation right now. And so he's at home alone. He traveled last week. That's why my tone is the way it is, because I knew that earlier. It's a little closer to home. And I think that's interesting. It's this one thing I've read, and you've read it too, is the places that have it, they all have this more stern talk than places that don't.
Right.
And so I think the right thing to do is social distancing and like take it very, very seriously.
And to be clear, we have it. it's in Lander. That's where I am for the time being. Been here for a few weeks. Will be here for, well, until it makes sense to be somewhere else. And that started with just an insurance claim on the roof of my house. And so we just bounced back here while that was going on. And since we've been here, this is all kind of cropped up. And I think people here initially were like, well, we're so far from everything. And we are far from everything. But we had our first case a couple of days ago, and a few more tests are out. And the talk around town is that they will probably come back positive. And the interesting thing about our positive test here is that it's not connected to anything. It's a guy who was living a largely isolated life, didn't travel, didn't have any contact with anybody. And so, he just has it. And I think that was kind of the moment at which people started to adopt the social distancing thing, take that a little more seriously around here. And I've noticed maybe a 75% slowdown, just talking to people and hearing what they're doing and where they're coming from. I mean, are things slowing down there too?
Oh yeah, totally. Things are really slow here. With the kiddos, we're trying to keep them. It's pretty funny. I say, all right, kids, here's what we're gonna do. Like, for example, today we did church at home, and you did too, right?
Yeah,
we went to the same church today. That was cool. And so our church adopted a live stream technique, and so that's what we did. That was interesting. So we woke up, all the kids got in the room, like, all right. So, last night we talked about it. We said 10:45, we're going to have church here. They're like, what? And I was like, yeah, we're going to do a live stream. I explained why and all that. And so it's really interesting. I give kids a point. I was like, hey, did you see anybody other than our family today? And if the answer is no, they get a point. So, right now my oldest daughter is winning. And today my wife had to go somewhere to do something. And I said, all right, who gets points today? And the 5-year-old said, it's not fair. Mommy drove me somewhere. I didn't want to go.
She's not in control of her own destiny.
She's not in control. She was upset at mommy. Like, mommy took me somewhere. I wanted that point. And so the goal is to try to make it fun for the kids, make this isolation thing fun for the kids.
Well,
that's what dads do, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, moms do that too, but that's our job. Come up with some creative stuff right now.
Other things I think about, like the things you're able to get done when you're doing the social isolation thing. Like, for example, Isaac Newton created calculus when Cambridge was closed, or I guess you call it Cambridge. I don't know how to say it. Cambridge was closed for the bubonic plague. That's my understanding. So it wasn't the bubonic plague, it was the Great Plague. I don't know the difference, but it was, let's see, 1665 was when that happened. Cambridge sent their students home to continue their studies. Yeah, that's the thing. So all the schools are closing in Alabama, pretty much everywhere. Sports are just closed today. It's pretty fun in the group chat. You can see some of the parents are like, golly, I figured they'd do this. And I was like, heck yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no kidding. You got to have those people's backs, because it really is. It's an expensive choice to shut stuff down. I was talking with my buddy who owns a shop here in Lander, and we were running the equation yesterday in terms of what to do with his shop and everything. He's got employees who depend on him, and I think he came up with a really smart, equitable, generous, thoughtful way to handle things. But the reality is, he's trying to juggle taking care of people who take care of him and who depend on him, and also being smart and doing the thing that if everybody does it, things will get better. Have we talked before about Immanuel Kant's moral imperative?
No, what is that?
That is a moral dictum from kind of the early Enlightenment, where, in an age where a lot of people were trying to think of a secular ethic of public morality. So what does morality look like if the church doesn't dictate it? Because that's what everybody was used to coming out of the Middle Ages. And then people are like, well, what does it look like in a more liberal Western society where people believe different things? How do you come up with a public moral ethic? And Kant's proposal was to just run this simple equation in your brain. And that is, would this work if everyone did it? If the answer is yes, then maybe it's okay. That's a starting point of morality. If the answer is no, you should not be the exception, and that would be an immoral action. And it feels like in this situation, that's a pretty decent starting point in terms of a question to ask myself when I do things. If everybody grabbed this thing without sanitizing their hands, would that make everything better or would it make everything worse? So instead of thinking, it's only me, it's not that big a deal, I'm just trying to make decisions based on, would this work if everybody did it? And I'm not saying that's the end-all, be-all solution to things, but it seems like a pretty good starting place.
Yeah, I mean, that's like you take the derivative of the function. If it's positive, that's a good thing, and if it's negative, that's a bad thing. Yeah, I like it. Simple. Did I tell you I found a letter sent, I guess it was to my granny or to someone in her family back in 1918?
No, but this sounds like the opening lyrics of Don't Take the Girl. Where does it go from here?
So anyway, the letter was talking about how this soldier was in training and he was writing home to check in on everybody, and he was like, man, seems like all the old people are getting sick, doesn't it? Sounds like they're about over it. And it was interesting. It was a thing that was just happening. It was just happening to everybody then, and it was worthy of note, but they had bigger fish to fry. They were also in the middle of a war. Imagine having this in the middle of a worldwide war, the biggest war that had ever happened at that point. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that?
Well, and one that was fought in the conditions where most of that war was fought on top of that. Mercy.
Golly.
I don't know what's going on. I don't have all the news, but it just seems like older people are getting sick. That's pretty sobering in light of what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
So I guess every family is going to have to figure out what they want to do. What you guys have ground rules that you've put down for all of this?
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is what we are doing is we're staying at the house, chilling out. I don't know. We're spending a lot of time with each other. That's for sure. We watched Karate Kid last night.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was really good. And in general, we're just trying to limit exposure to other people, not for ourselves, because we're kind of in the demographic where, they say people our age recover well and all that, but it's not for us. It's for the elderly and other people. So we're just trying to keep it low, keep contact to a minimum. Seems like you're trying to do the same thing, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Just, not really going out a ton, minimal trips for important things, and then being way more thoughtful about what I do while I'm out. I'm not sending my kids or family out for anything. I'm kind of being the connection point for now, but we're still going out and doing things. Like I went fly fishing yesterday in the canyon, caught a whopping nothing, but it was beautiful. It was nice to be out there, time to think. And we're going for walks, and we'll go throw the ball around or something as it's warming up here over the next couple of days. So we're still doing things. I tell you, one of the things that's weird is I just haven't touched anybody for almost a week. Nobody that doesn't have my last name. And
you've only touched yourself.
Stop. No. No, I mean,
sorry.
I'm not like
that was you just set the ball on the tee. I had to hit it. I'm sorry.
I did, and I just got done saying it was good to be outside. You did the right thing.
Sorry, had to.
No, I mean, I haven't. I'm not like Captain Gropey, Huggy, Touchy guy, but yeah, handshake or hug with people you know really well. I mean, I miss that stuff already, but I'm not doing it, and this is the longest stretch I've ever gone in my life without that. So that's kind of weird, but. I don't know. We're washing our hands a whole bunch, and we're staying home a lot, and we're doing school and all the normal stuff. So, yeah, sounds like we're kind of in the same boat.
I feel bad for not going to see my parents because I usually hang out with my parents once a week. We find an excuse to be with each other. Maybe not for a long time, but just something. And just drop in or something like that. I got a lot going on, and I try to just hit pause on Sundays, and it's weird not doing that. It's weird not going over there and just seeing what's up or doing sports, watching sports or something with them. I don't like that part. So what I don't understand, and there's got to be an answer to this. I don't understand how something like this ramps down. For example, back in the day when you had the plague, there eventually was a not plague. So,
right.
How do you trickle off of this? This is where I'm an engineer. I'm not a biologist. And so I don't know a lot about that stuff. So I really want to find an expert and just have a conversation with them and ask all the logical questions. So I would love to contact someone at the CDC and just sit down and be like, hey, doctor, whatever your name is, could you please just explain how this, transitions back to normal life and what happens there? I think that's interesting.
I'm really curious about that too. I think a video that would just kill right now would be, how does an epidemic end? I'd click on that. I'd like to know. I've heard a lot about how it ramps up. I've heard a lot about how it starts out of nowhere, but I don't know how it goes away.
It clearly does, though.
Yeah, I mean, we're not still having the Black Plague right now that I'm aware of.
The plague is still a thing, is my understanding. Like they're especially in the developing world, every once in a while you'll hear about a really old type of illness that'll just pop up. And they're like, oh, wow, we're still dealing with that? Dang.
I don't know that we for sure know what the Black Death was, though. So when we say the plague, that kind of refers to a lot of different things. So I don't know how that one went away. But
I don't know.
I understand what Grant was talking about with an exponential curve and that capping out at a certain point. Theoretically, after that, the curve starts to drop off. So maybe that's how it starts to end, as we see a plateau first.
Yeah, I don't know. I told you about the Chick-Fil-A sauce comment, didn't I?
The Chick-fil-A sauce comment.
When I was up in Alaska, and this first started, coming online in terms of news, a lady picked me up in an Uber, and she goes, "Oh yeah, you're from Alabama? Oh, okay. Well, I got a friend down in Georgia says they're putting Chick-fil-A sauce at the tops of their doors in hopes that the coronavirus will pass over them." I was like,
it's a Babylon Bee article.
I was like, lady, that's too soon. Did the Babylon Bee say that?
Yeah. They've got like this beautiful orange mustardy sauce, and some Christian-looking guy is applying it to his doorpost.
What do you think about making jokes in a time like this? What are your thoughts on that?
Let me bounce a question back to you. What would you guess my thoughts would be in a time like that?
Well, I don't want to guess. I just want you to tell me.
All right, fine.
Well, I mean,
because I think you could guess, and I think you would guess that the answer would be lock and load, man.
Yeah, but at the same time, you've been kind of chill. You've been a little quiet on all this stuff, and I'm not gonna say, I don't know. I think it's good. I think comedy has a very important role to play in times like this. There was, Gus Johnson on the YouTubes.
Oh yeah, sure.
I think he's one of the few people doing a really good job of comedy these days. Like he just does not care. Sometimes he goes a little overboard.
One of the keys to comedy.
I was like, Gus, that's a little much. But sometimes he just nails it. And he nailed it the other day with a skit called "People Who Are Going to Parties Right Now." And
I haven't seen that.
Oh, I kid you not. He has a line in the skit that is verbatim something I heard someone else say. He in the skit, they're like, "Gus, why are you going out to party?" He's like, I'm young and healthy. I mean, it doesn't affect anyone else. And I literally heard someone else say that. And I was like, it's not about...
I've heard it too.
You've heard other people say that as well?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yep. I think...
Pretty awkwardly.
Yeah, and you kind of want to say, but it's not about your body. It's not about your body. It's about my uncle's body. And your grandmother's body.
Yeah, in this moment, we're like the aspen tree in the Rocky Mountains, right?
What does that mean?
It's not one tree. Well, I haven't heard the suggestion that like the biggest organism on Earth is the Rocky Mountain aspen tree because they all share roots. They're all connected, so they're all really one organism.
Are you serious?
Looks like individual trees. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's true. I haven't gone and dug them all up. But I've heard people suggest that the biggest organism on Earth is aspen grove somewhere in the Rocky Mountains because they're all connected. And they look like individual things, but they're all connected together. And this is one of those moments where the "I'm going to go party because it doesn't affect anybody else" thing is pretty ignorant sounding, because in this moment, we're kind of like the aspen trees.
I want to know more about aspen now. Do you know about the I'm going to take this to a dark place. Do you know about the American chestnut?
No, I do not.
So the American chestnut was a beautiful tree. I mean, if I say the color chestnut, you've got this golden brown image in your mind, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's from the wood of the chestnut tree. But back in the 20s, there was this chestnut blight that came through, and it was a fungus that affected only the chestnut tree. And it wiped out almost every chestnut tree in the U.S. And the Chinese chestnut is still viable, but even today, if you plant an American chestnut, it'll grow till about 20 years, and then the blight will get it, and it will die. And so that's the kind of thing I'm wondering about the end of a pandemic. How does that happen? Because the thing is still out there. Like the common flu is still out there, and there's this echo of people that die from the flu every year because there's this new strain of flu that's out there, right? So I kind of feel like this sort of thing's just going to be around for a while, but we're just going to be a stronger population because of it afterwards.
Yeah, and obviously what you just said, really everything you're talking about here has both a scientific application and a sociological application. What does it look like for an epidemic to end scientifically? Well, that's what we've mostly been talking about, but what does it look like for it to end sociologically? What things do we have to do, either good or bad, to get through it? Which of those things are going to be now just how we do things? What things are we going to do or try out where we're like, whoa, that actually makes more sense. And we never would have done that otherwise. We should think of each other this way, or we should do this thing collectively. Which things might we get forced into a corner and do that we're maybe not super proud of, like some of the things that happened with Spanish flu, where you get past that moment, but there is sort of this lingering cultural memory of, yikes, there were some things about that weren't real great, were they? So there's a ton of questions about just what it looks like afterwards. And I guess that makes what we do right now even more important, because it isn't just a matter of getting through a thing. This will be precedent setting to some extent. And I continue to be optimistic that I think we're going to rise to the occasion and set some precedents that we really like. I think this might be the thing that gets us out of the seemingly inconquerable yuck doldrums of the toxic communication and all of that stuff. Because, man, I sure don't feel any ill will toward anybody right now. I'm certainly softened up. Are you feeling that?
I'm feeling that, but there's a couple other things I thought about with that. Like, there's going to be some lasting things that change because our parents, us, we've never thought about, oh, you remember that time when we couldn't shake hands with anybody for an extended period of time? And even watching Karate Kid last night, I know that sounds silly, but I was watching Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi would come over and, oh, by the way, when all the bullies jumped Daniel-san and Mr.
When they're
Miyagi,
wearing the skeleton costumes?
Yeah. Did you realize that Mr. Miyagi straight up kicked a teenager like in the junk? Did you realize that?
And he did not get sued.
No. He just block, kapow, right in the China berries. It was amazing. So I was like, wow, for some reason I feel like you couldn't make a movie like that. Anyway, so there were some cultural things going on in that movie that I didn't really understand because of how sensitive we are today. And there were also some things happening in there. I was like, oh, wow, look at all those people in that one location just hanging out. And, looking through the lens of this exact moment in history, it looks different.
Oh, all those does kids it ever? Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
my parents were introducing me to Zoe's Infinite Playlist. I think that's what it's called. It's a show they like where people saying, I don't really understand it yet. But in that, even I just saw some handshakes and some hugs. And there's this thing inside of me that I've conditioned up in literally 2 weeks to see that and be like, oh, what are you doing? That's not right. That's not what you do. Well, I guess you could a month or two ago when they were making this show. It's weird. It's weird how quickly this is going to reprogram our brains about how we hang out. I think you're right.
That's I don't like that. So I think that's a negative thing that could come from this. Another thing is, I don't know, when you read the Bible, for example, sometimes they'll do some things culturally that makes no sense today. Like, for example, I was reading the other day how Esau lost his birthright and stuff like that. It's
right, the soup incident.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, "Hey, I'm just so hungry," and Jacob's like, "Well, give me your birthright." He's like, "Okay, I'm hungry."
If it's really good soup.
Yeah, and then they're like, okay, well, that's bound forever. Like, that makes no sense. But back then, that was the way things were done. And so another thing was, we shall make a covenant. Put your hand behind my thigh.
You don't still do that?
Well, I was just wondering.
I recently got a mortgage and...
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah,
well, maybe it's different out west here. We do a lot of thigh grabbing for contracts.
Yeah, exactly. And so it makes me wonder, we've been shaking hands for years, and what's going to happen now? Are we going to start going to some kind of weird elbow bump?
Come on.
Please don't.
Doesn't it benefit us to shake hands? Doesn't it benefit us to hang out in groups? I mean, in some way, doesn't that make our immune system work better that we're exchanging these things all the time?
That's what
I mean, if every 100 years it gets a little out of control and it hurts for a little bit, I think that's kind of the cost of doing business, isn't it?
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, if you have a bubble boy that's grown up in a bubble since birth, he's going to have no immune system and he's going to die instantly as soon as you get him out of the bubble on his 16th birthday. I think that's when you get out of bubbles, when you're a bubble boy. And,
let's go with that.
Yeah, so I think handshakes are good. I mean, but there's a limit. I don't think we should just like French kiss each other when we meet.
Well, I mean, it depends on who.
You know what I mean?
I guess.
By the way.
Yes, I'm also generally opposed to French kissing people you meet.
Yeah, so you understand what I'm saying. I think there's going to be some ramifications because this moment's always going to be in the back of our minds, and it's just going to change the way we do things. And
whoa.
What?
Yeah. Well, think about it. How many people do you know who were alive during the Depression?
Oh, exactly. And they saved money like crazy. My granny freezes bread.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder
if
all of us who lived through this are going to have some new thing that we do where a generation from now, people will be like, oh, Grandpa, you're so weird. Oh, are you going to talk about the coronavirus again?
Coronavirus.
Yeah.
You weren't there,
Crazy.
boy. You don't understand.
It makes you a lot more empathetic toward people who went through legitimate crises in their times.
Yeah. And if you think about the numbers of dead right now, I mean, I don't even think we're up to the number of people that die seasonally due to the flu, right?
No, we're not. And that's why a lot of people are saying this is a hoax and a fraud. And, you know, it's nonsense. It's rooted in a complete lack of reading or understanding the situation. But the raw numbers are such that if you just look at those, yeah, it doesn't look like that big a deal. The curve is what alerts you to the actual problem.
Well, I mean, the fact that in Italy they're overrunning the healthcare system, that's what bothers me. China, whatever, they could be lying to us. I don't believe anything that comes out of there. Because
China's tough to read. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's all state-run media. And so I don't believe them. Italy's what got me like, okay, here's data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, time to start changing stuff.
Yep. So anyway, that's the
It's
deal.
going to be interesting to see how long and what people's brains are like over that time. You know, so if we do, it looks like 8 weeks for sure. That looks like that's the recommendation from this date forward, that we're going to kind of sit tight in this extreme social distancing phase. I think people are probably going to do pretty well for 8 weeks. If that gets extended for another 8, I wonder what the mood will be. If it's discouragement, if it's loneliness, if it's, you know, just this resolve and we're going to get through this kind of mentality, if it'll be okay to joke about things. I'm really curious to see what our collective psyche is like as we do this thing together.
I think the most important thing that's going to happen from all this is a massive nationwide push toward bidets.
Well,
it's going to be a lot of clean balloon knots,
out of this. Balloon knots. That's the worst one I've heard since Starfish. Yeah, that's vivid. That's very, very vivid. I'm telling you, man, there's something to that bidet thing. It's very effective and it's very efficient. And I don't feel much stress over the lack of toilet paper in my life right now.
I saw a meme the other day. It was somebody holding a shower head as if it was a microphone. And it says,
okay.
It said something along the lines of, now you are told, what was it? It was, you know, I am the captain now. It says, I am the toilet paper now. So, I thought that's pretty funny. So in general, I think where we're at on this is the purpose of isolation is not to protect yourself, it's to protect others, unless you have a degraded immune system. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. You should invest in bidets. What else?
Strongly agree with all of that. And this is where whatever social capital we've earned with each other, it pays off. This is why trust is important, and it's cool that we have some of that to fall back on. And I'm weirdly encouraged by how people are treating each other. It's been better than I expected.
Can I say something I'm scared of?
Please.
I'm noticing that there's a lot of drastic things happening at the government level right now. And they're starting to talk about just giving people money.
Yeah, I have seen that. I haven't seen it. I mean, I've heard it straight from their mouths. I think that's likely to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I think there is a risk of doing something that we regret. You remember after 9/11, we're like, we need the Patriot Act. And we're like, oh, yeah. And we're all like lined up and saluted and all this stuff. And then years later.
We didn't all line up and salute, but yes. I do remember that one.
A lot of people lined up and salute. And then years later, we're like, wait a second, our phones listen to us? What's up with that? You know?
Yeah, and wait a second, they re-upped that while we were all in quarantine and distracted with coronavirus stuff?
That's kind of what I'm thinking, yeah. It's like, whenever there's a panic or a crisis or whatever, that's when the stupid stuff happens. I noticed there's a bill going through right now called Earn It, EARNIT, Earn It. And it is
the one that puts effectively an end to end-to-end encryption?
That's the one, yeah. And I am against that. I
am also against that.
Yeah, I think it is a really good idea to have the ability to communicate with another party without a man-in-the-middle attack or someone else in there. So, you know that thing I've been working on for a long time. I think I'm going to release that video and that thing that we've been working on. I think I'm going to release it next month.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful.
I think I'm going to do it.
There is this frustration, and you're sounding like a kindred spirit right now, but there's this feeling of the government is a good idea. I'm glad that we have one. Good can come of that. It's a way we can serve each other. It can facilitate addressing difficult situations. But in the exact same moment that so many, including myself, are counting on the government to do their part in facilitating a difficult situation, they're also attacking our rights again while everybody's distracted. Like, why you got to keep pushing, government? Why do you have to know what everybody says to everybody else? Just a little bit of space would be okay. And so it's one of those moments again where I'm reminded of, hey, there are things that I really appreciate about the state, and also it's the job of everybody to try and pump the brakes on that, or it will expand eternally until it gets to a place that it really exceeds its value. And so, yep, I saw that stuff too. I'm troubled by it too.
I am more pro-government than you are. I am definitely more pro-government than you are. Like, I don't like all those things you just said. I would never say, "Hey, government, blah blah blah." I don't think I would have as strong of a line as you do on that stuff. Especially since I spent a lot of time working for the government and trying to, I've seen some of the inside working. Some of it's good, some of it's not as good. But I just had to go on record as not your words not being my words right then.
Fair enough. Yeah. Bottom line is, from the dawn of time, it's been a mixed bag, and that's what we're experiencing right now. But this is also one of those times where, I disagree with almost every politician overwhelmingly, and I'm also really, really rooting for all of them. I don't feel like I have any enemies right now. I am rooting for them to make great decisions and crush it and inspire confidence and show care to people who need care. I am really, really pulling for the people who make decisions for us right now.
Let me ask you this. Iran released their prisoners.
They did?
Thoughts?
Seriously, that happened?
Yeah. 85,000 prisoners.
Is that all of them?
I don't know. Just what are you thinking right now?
Well, what are they in there for? If they're in there for trying to murder somebody and they still want to murder them, that seems like a bit of a problematic thing. If they're in there for sillier things like insulting the government or religious crimes or drugs or victimless crimes, then good. I'm thrilled they're let out of prison.
Let's see. Yeah, again, it's hard to understand, but I'm seeing this news article from Business Insider, Al Jazeera, Fox News. That was just a quick Google. BBC is reporting certain people. ITV, that's a British source. Yeah, it seems to be. I don't know. It seems like it happened. I can't guarantee that it happened.
Wow.
But yeah, basically they were saying, hey, this thing is running rampant through the prisons. Let's get all these people away from each other. It says temporarily, okay, Reuters is saying Iran temporarily releases 70,000 prisoners as coronavirus cases surge.
So they're all just going to come back later?
I don't know.
Noah's Ark? And
I don't know.
They'll play like the Iranian horn of return to prison. And then everybody's like, oh, that's my cue. Sorry, family. I have to go back to prison now. See y'all later. Like, I think they might have a tough time getting people to go back.
It's interesting. I have friends from that have family members in Iran, and they said that they talk about the sanctions quite a bit. They're like, yeah, the sanctions have really hurt Iran because they don't have the medical supplies they need. So I don't know. I want everybody everywhere to be okay is what I want.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And at the end of it all, I want us to be able to look at each other and say, we're okay because we acted like brothers and sisters, because we thought outside ourselves, because we pushed past some of the really nasty habits we've developed in terms of how we think about each other and talk about each other. And look what we accomplished together. And then two things happen. One, we're not only past this really difficult time, but two, everybody suddenly realizes, like, wow, we could do way better. This could feel way better. We could accomplish way more. And maybe something really good happens on the other side of this thing.
Yeah, and then we look at each other and say, if you agree, place your hand behind my thigh.
That's right where those are supposed to go. Hey, thanks for thinking about this stuff with me, buddy. It's been a difficult conversation to have. I find myself staring off into space when we're on the phone trying to think about this, or when I'm talking with friends. It's a lot of factors to try to line up and make sense of at once. And I appreciate you taking the time to think it through with me.
Yeah, you bet.